Namaste and Subhi Pranam. Welcome to your today's topic, which is impact of stress on pregnancy. So let's look into the impact of stress and its impact on the mother's well-being as well as the well-being of the baby. So understanding the impact of stress in pregnancy is so crucial for ensuring the well-being of both mom and the baby. And stress is a very natural response to challenging situation, and it can have a very profound physiological as well as psychological effects during this delicate period of pregnancy. So excessive chronic stress triggers the release of stress hormones such as cortisol, which can influence pregnancy outcomes. So sources of stress during pregnancy can vary to so many factors, including environmental factors, psychosocial stressors, or relationship conflicts, and all other work-related pressures. So there have been research that has shown that high level of stress during pregnancy are associated with an increased risk of complications in the pregnancy, like preterm birth or low birth weight, and also gestational hypertension. Moreover, maternal stress can have a long-term effect on the neurodevelopment of the baby, so which can potentially impact the baby's cognitive as well as behavioral well-being in the future. So recognizing and addressing the impact of stress during the pregnancy itself is very essential. And by implementing comprehensive screening measures and promoting effective stress management strategies, we can actually mitigate the negative consequences of stress during pregnancy. So what we can actually do is equip mothers with tools and resources to manage stress effectively and help them to bring sense of vitality and manage their overall well-being as well as the well-being of their babies effectively. Now, let's come on to the sources and the types of stress during pregnancy. So during pregnancy, a woman may encounter various stressors that can impact her physical as well as emotional well-being. So when we understand the different sources and types of stress, it can help us address and manage any kind of challenges that might come up during pregnancy, especially that causes stress to the mother. So first and foremost we can look at is environmental stressors, which is referred to any kind of external factors in the physical environment that can induce stress during pregnancy. For example, it can include exposure to pollution or high level of toxicity in any manner, or hazardous substances, and high level of pollution in the air has also been associated with increased maternal stress and potentially affecting the pregnancy outcomes. Similarly, exposure to noise pollution can contribute to elevated stress levels, leading to adverse effects on both the mother as well as the baby. And additionally, certain occupational environments can pose risk to pregnant mother as well. Some occupations require where mothers are exposed to high level of chemicals, or it can be a very physically demanding job for the mother, which can result to work-related stress. Now, second kind of factor is the psychosocial stressor, which encompasses of a wide range of non-physical stressor that can impact the mother. Financial stress is also another common psychosocial stressor, wherein there are worries about financial stability and the ability to provide for the baby, which adds on to a lot of burden in mind. And life events like loss of loved ones or divorce or some kind of major life changes can also contribute to heightened level of stress for the mothers. Sometimes lack of social support and feelings of isolation can also increase the risk of experiencing stress during pregnancy. The absence of a strong support network can lead to feelings of loneliness and anxiety and impacts the mother's overall well-being. And Then is another kind of stressor is relationship and marital stress, so which can significantly affect the mother's health. So conflicts within the intimate partnerships as well as strained relationships can create chronic stress, which may harm maternal health as well as health of the baby. Sometimes unplanned pregnancy can also induce stress, and as they can disrupt the future plans and create emotional and financial pressure. Furthermore, intimate partner violence poses a lot of significant risk, which results in heightened stress levels, fear, and compromised safety for the mother. Work-related stress, as we discussed earlier, is another important area, and this is very prominent source of stress during pregnancy. Sometimes the job demands are too high for the mother, which can include long working hours, high amount of workload. Sometimes it may not be physical workload, but then mental workload is also there. Sometimes it can be physically demanding workload also. And all of this leads to increased level of stress. And struggling with work-life balance, especially during pregnancy, can further contribute to the stress. So discrimination and harassment in the workplace can also create additional stressors for pregnant mothers, which affects their mental and emotional well-being. So by recognizing and addressing these stressors, women can further work on reducing the overall burden of stress and promote positive pregnancy experience for themselves. Now, coming on to interplay between stress and hormonal changes during pregnancy. So pregnancy is a transformative period in a mother's life, and it does bring a lot of physiological changes also, as we have been studying for so long in different chapters. So among these changes, hormonal fluctuations plays a very, very crucial role in supporting the development and maintenance of the pregnancy. However, the interplay between stress and hormonal changes during this period brings profound effect both on mom and the baby. So hormonal fluctuations during pregnancy are a natural necessary process, as we have learned previously. So here in the hormonal process, the levels of hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and HCG increase significantly to support the growth of fetus and prepare the mother's body to childbirth as well as lactation. But these hormonal changes are tightly regulated and essential for healthy pregnancy. So stress, on the other hand, can disrupt the delicate balance of hormones during pregnancy. When a mother experiences chronic or severe stress, the body's stress response system, known as hypothalamic pituitary adrenal, which is HPA-axis, becomes overactive. And this can lead to an increase in cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And this elevated level of cortisol levels can interfere with the production and regulation of other hormones that like progesterone, which is actually essential for maintaining the pregnancy. So the impact of stress on hormonal balance can have adverse effect on reproductive health as well as fertility also, which we have discussed earlier. So there have been so many studies that have shown the level of stress can disrupt menstrual cycle, ovulation, which leads to further irregular periods and reduced fertility. And chronic stress is also been associated with increased risk of pregnancy complications like preterm birth, low birth weight, gestational diabetes, etc. And so recognizing the interplay between stress and hormones changes during pregnancy, and it's so important to understand the role of stress and how not managing the stress can actually disturb the hormonal health of the mother. Now, coming on to the maternal stress and fetal neurodevelopment. So maternal stress during pregnancy can have a profound impact on the developing brain and the neurodevelopment of the baby. So the interplay between the maternal stress and the fetal neurodevelopment has garnered increasing attention in the research field also these days, and it has revealed significant association between the two. So understanding these effects is really crucial for promoting the optimal cognitive, behavioral, as well as emotional outcomes for the baby or the child. So effects on the developing brain of the baby can be following. So first would be maternal stress can disrupt normal development of the fetal brain, and stress hormones like cortisol can come across the placenta and potentially affect the formation and the connectivity of neural networks in the developing brain of the baby. And these alterations may have a long-lasting implication for the baby's neurocognitive functioning. And next is like cognitive and behavioral outcomes. So exposure to high-level maternal stress during pregnancy is linked with various cognitive as well as behavioral disruption in the children in the later ages. And there have been studies that suggest that increased risk of attention deficit order and hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, also is present when the mother is exposed to extreme stress. Children can also have learning difficulties as well as impaired execution function later in life due to this. And maternal stress have also been associated with lower cognitive abilities as well as lower academic performance later in the childhood as well as adolescent ages. So, influence on emotional regulation and temperament. So, maternal stress can impact the development of child's emotional regulation as well as the overall temperament. So prenatal stress exposure has been associated with increased risk of emotional as well as behavioral problems in the babies and the children that include anxiety as well as depression. So children exposed to high level of maternal stress may exhibit difficulties in emotional self-regulation as well as increased reactivity to stressors, and there is a higher likelihood of behavioral issues later in their life. So it's really important to identify and support the mother experiencing high level of stress. And there can be interventions that are aimed at stress reduction and promotes emotional well-being during pregnancy. All of that can contribute to more favorable neurodevelopment outcomes for the baby. Now, this chart signifies how everything is correlated and how lack of either nutrition, which is a physiological factor, and stress, which is the mental factor, all of this together can alter the biology of the baby itself by playing with, the immune system, the endocrine system, the brain development of the baby, and all of these aspects can lead to different kind of neurodevelopment disorder and cognitive problems for the baby if stress is not managed well during the pregnancy time itself. Now, looking at the role of stress in maternal sleep disturbances and fatigue. So pregnancy, as we know, is anyway quite a significant time for all the physical changes and emotional changes that occur during this time, and sleep disturbances are also very common during this period. So the interplay between stress and sleep in pregnant mother is a very complex one. So wherein the stress is playing a very crucial role in the development of insomnia and other sleep disorders. So understanding the consequences of stress-induced sleep disturbances is very essential for promoting maternal and fetal health. So sleep disruption during pregnancy, can happen often, wherein the mothers can experience various sleep disturbances, including difficulty to fall asleep or frequent nighttime awakenings, and overall reduced quality of sleep. And these disruptions are attributed to hormonal changes and also discomfort that comes along with it, and increased pressure of bladder, pressure on the bladder. So, however, so if the sleep quality is not good, the other hormonal functions as well as different kind of discomforts can happen in the body. So hormonal disruption is there, discomfort is there, and also the pressure is also increased on the bladder at the same time. But these are all the consequences of the bad sleep. Now, what is the reason for bad sleep is, again, the stress is causing this. So stress increases the sleep difficulties and it leads to more severe sleep disturbances in turn. So stress-induced insomnia and sleep disorder can actually trigger or worsen insomnia and other further disorders in pregnant mothers. So chronic stress activates the body's stress response system, which leads to elevated level of stress hormones like cortisol, which we discussed earlier, and these hormonal changes further disrupt the normal sleep and wake cycles, making it harder for the pregnant woman to fall asleep and stay asleep. Now, consequences for maternal and fetal health. So the impact of stress-induced sleep disturbances can extend beyond the maternal fatigue. It can have significant consequences for both the mother as well as the fetal health. So sleep deprivation and chronic fatigue negatively affects the mother's physical and mental well-being, and then further it increases the risk of mood disorder, impaired cognitive function, and reduced quality of life. And in addition, inadequate sleep during pregnancy has been associated with adverse birth outcomes, which includes preterm birth, low birth weight, gestational hypertension, etc. So once again, implementing stress management techniques and promoting healthy sleep habits becomes very crucial here. And this can, if we are able to successfully alter these sleep habits, we can help alleviate any negative effects of the stress on the sleep. Now, coming on to stress and antenatal depression. So understanding the relationship between antenatal depression, also known as prenatal depression, refers to depression that occurs during pregnancy. So the relationship between stress and antenatal depression is complex and multidimensional. So while pregnancy is a time of joy and anticipation, it can also be accompanied by increased stress level, as we know. So which can further contribute to development of depression. So prevalence and the risk factors of prenatal depressions, let's look into that. So antenatal depression or prenatal depression is a common mental health issue which affects a significant number of pregnant women. And the risk factors for this depression include personal and family history of depression, sometimes experiencing stressful events also can lead to prenatal depression. Lack of social support and financial difficulties can also lead to prenatal depression. Now, bidirectional relationship between stress and depression. So stress and antenatal depression have been bidirectional relationship. Have a bidirectional relationship, meaning that they can both influence and exacerbate each other. So high level of stress during pregnancy can increase the risk of developing depression. Likewise, prenatal or antenatal depression can make the pregnant woman more vulnerable to stress, as depression can affect her ability to cope with stressors effectively. So this reciprocal relationships creates a cycle that can be challenging to break without proper support and intervention. Now, implication for maternal well-being and the infant outcomes. So untreated antenatal depression can have significant implications both for the mother's well-being as well as the baby's well-being. So maternal well-being may be compromised, leading to decreased quality of life, disrupted maternal-infant bonding, and increased risk of postpartum depression later after delivery. And babies born to the mothers with prenatal depression might experience adverse outcomes like preterm birth, low birth weight, neurological development issues, as well as behavioral issues in the future. Now, this is how, once again, one side is the metabolic effects and another side is the psychological effect. And both of these affects the neuroendocrine factors, which affects the baby's neurological as well as endocrine system development, and hence has various kind of psychological as well as physiological changes and issues for the baby. Now let's look into the impact of maternal stress on the infant behavior and the development. So maternal stress during pregnancy and early infancy can have a significant impact on the baby's behavior and development. So the developing brain and the nervous system of the baby are highly sensitive to environmental influences. That includes maternal stress also. So understanding the effects of maternal stress on infants is very crucial for us to promote a healthy social, emotional, and cognitive development of the baby. So neonatal and infant stress response, let's look into that. So infants are capable of experiencing stress and they have their own stress response systems also. So maternal stress directly impacts the babies in a manner that stress hormones transfers to them through placenta, and also the interaction that happens with the mother's hormones at the time of birth. All of these are exposure to maternal stress, which disrupts the baby's stress regulation system. And this leads to altered physiological and behavioral responses to stressors. Now, effects on social and emotional development of the baby. So maternal stress can influence the social and emotional development of the baby, wherein high level of maternal stress during pregnancy as well as during the early postnatal periods have been associated with risk of behavioral as well as other issues with the baby, and it might include sense of irritability or anxiety and aggression expressed by the babies all the time. And these babies may also exhibit difficulties in emotional regulation and might have impaired social interaction and attachment relationships in future. And long-term consequences of child development, let's look into that. So the impact of maternal stress on infant behavior and development can extend into childhood as well as beyond. So babies that are exposed to high level of maternal stress can have increased risk of cognitive and emotional difficulties, and there have been studies that have shown the association between maternal stress and later outcomes, including cognitive delays and attention deficit disorder or hyperactivity disorder, which is ADHD, and also other kind of different emotional disorder that babies can have. So it's really important for us to know that all babies, not all babies are actually exposed to maternal stress, and hence they all do not experience the adverse outcome. But because some mothers do have supportive environment and some don't. So the presence of supportive environment like nurturing caregiver or a stable environment can mitigate the negative effects of maternal stress on the baby's development also. So even if the pregnancy environment was not that great, but they could receive a good care in the first year of their life, that can also help the babies to mitigate these challenges of maternal stress exposure. Now, coming on to epigenetics and the legacy of maternal stress. So, epigenetic modification plays a crucial role in gene expression and can be influenced by various environmental factors, and that also includes maternal stress. So, there have been emerging research that suggests that maternal stress have been transgenerational and it has transgenerational effects. So, which is impacting the health and the well-being of future generations. So, understanding the interplay between maternal stress and epigenetic modification is very essential for comprehending the legacy of maternal stress and developing the strategies to mitigate the potential risks that are attached to generational transfer of the stress. So one would be epigenetic modifications and gene expression. So epigenetic modifications are chemical tags that attach to DNA and can regulate gene expression. So maternal stress can influence these modifications, leading to changes in the gene expression patterns in the offspring. So stress-induced alteration in DNA, methylation, and histone modification and microRNA expression can impact functioning of genes associated with stress response, neurodevelopment, and the overall health. So transgenerational effects of maternal stress. Let's look into that. So research have been suggesting that the maternal stress has transgenerational effects, which means that effects of the stress can be passed down to subsequent generations. So there have been animal studies that has demonstrated that offspring of stressed mothers exhibit altered stress responses, behavioral changes, and increased susceptibility to various diseases. And preliminary human studies also indicates that transgenerational epigenetic effects on the maternal stress are also present. So mitigating epigenetic risk through stress reduction is the key to come out of this cycle. So while epigenetic modifications can be influenced by maternal stress, they are not entirely deterministic in their manner. So mitigating the risk associated with maternal stress is possible through stress reduction strategies and early intervention programs that address stress and support the maternal mental health can contribute to a very positive long-term outcomes for both mom and her offspring. So we know what all other stress reduction tools that we can use for mothers, which we have discussed in various different chapters before. So now, looking at the, how the altered environment in the mother leading to pregnancy complications like preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, immune response, mitochondrial changes, placenta disruption, as well as depression in the mother. And hence, since 50% of the gene is malleable and can be changed through the environmental factors. Hence, all these can result into difficulties faced by the babies in the future life as well. So you can see that all this will not be just the birth outcomes, but also might impact the baby's health in future. Now, looking at the socio-economical factors contributing to stress in pregnancy. So first would be low income or income disparities and stress. So low socio-economical status and income disparities have a direct impact on the stress levels during pregnancy. So first factor can be seen as financial strains. So limited financial resources and difficulty in making ends meet can lead to increased stress and anxiety among the mothers. And this can a mother can have concerns about providing for the baby's needs or for healthcare expenses or meeting the basic necessities. and all of this can be overwhelming. Sometimes this might include having an unstable employment. So, insecure or unstable employment like temporary or low wage jobs or can add to a lot of stressful experience for the mother. Sometimes fear of losing job or inability to take time off for prenatal care can also create a lot of stress for the mothers in advance. Now, access to healthcare and prenatal support is another stress contributing factor. So, unequal access to healthcare services and prenatal support further contributes to the stress burden during pregnancy. So, sometimes there is limited access to healthcare for a lot of women, and so especially in the disadvantaged communities, they may face, barriers in accessing quality healthcare services and prenatal care also. And all of this can result in delayed or inadequate medical attention, which can increase anxiety and the worry about the health and the well-being of both the mother and the baby. Lack of prenatal support. So, insufficient access to prenatal support systems like, maybe understanding or having this awareness to take care of the child, or she might have lack of counseling during that phase, lack of community resources. All of this can leave a mother feeling very isolated and unsupported. And the absence of strong support network can accelerate and increase the stress level in the mother. Now, food insecurity and nutritional stress also is a very common one during pregnancy. So, food insecurity resulting from limited access to nutritious food can contribute to stress during pregnancy. So, pregnant women facing financial constraints may struggle to afford a balanced, healthy diet, which can lead to concerns about providing adequate nutrition to the developing baby. And this nutritional stress can lead to heightened anxiety and worry about the long-term health and the well-being of both the mother and the baby. Now let's look into the psychological effects of stress on pregnancy. So first is maternal psychological well-being and stress. So the psychological well-being of the mother is closely intertwined with the experience of stress during pregnancy. So pregnancy itself can bring a lot of range of emotions, and when combined with external stressors, then it can significantly impact the maternal mental health. So high level of stress leads to increased anxiety, depression, and further psychological distress. And here, the stress and mental health disorder during pregnancy, which can, all these stressors can actually direct the mother's destiny towards psychological disorders. So pregnancy does not exempt women from risk of developing mental health disorder. In fact, it can be a very vulnerable period where existing mental health conditions may worsen and new ones may also emerge. So stress acts as a precipitating factor for mental health disorders like depression, anxiety disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD) during pregnancy. And these conditions can have profound effect on the well-being of the mother, and it also may affect the developing fetus. And let's look at the impact on maternal bonding and attachment. So the emotional bond between a mother and her baby begins to form during pregnancy, and stress can influence this important process. And high level of stress may hinder the establishment of secure attachment between the mother and the baby. And stress can lead to difficulties in emotional regulations, impaired with maternal-infant bonding, and challenges in developing secure attachment. And these effects may extend beyond the prenatal period and have implications for the child's long-term emotional and social development. And let's look into the impact of maternal stress on fetal development. So first is transplacental transfer of stress hormones. So during the pregnancy, maternal stress can have effect on the developing baby through the transplacental transfer of stress hormones. So stress signals from the mother's body, including cortisols and catecholamines, can cross the placenta and reach the baby's bloodstream. And these stress hormones can potentially influence the baby's development and programming. So fetal programming or the baby's programming and long-term effect, baby's programming, the fetal programming can have a long-term effect on the health. So let's look into that. Now, maternal stress during pregnancy has been linked to the concept of fetal programming, which suggests that early experiences in the womb shape the long-term health outcome of the baby. So prolonged exposure to maternal stress and elevated stress hormones disrupts the baby's normal development as well as programming. So this can lead to increased risk of various health conditions later in life. It can include cardiovascular diseases, metabolic disorder, as well as mental health disorder. Now, looking into neurodevelopmental consequences of maternal stress. So, the developing fetal brain is very particularly vulnerable to effects of maternal stress. And high level of maternal stress and stress hormones impacts the baby's neurological development and alter the structure and the function of baby's brain. And this can result in long-term consequences for the cognitive development as well as emotional regulation and behavioral outcomes of the babies. And there have been studies that have been associated between the maternal risk during maternal stress during pregnancy, having the increased risk of neurological disorders like autism, spectrum disorder, attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder (ADHD) for the babies. Now let's look into pregnancy complications associated with stress. So number one would be preterm birth and low birth weight. So maternal stress during pregnancy have been linked to an increased risk of preterm birth and low birth weight. Prolonged or high level of stress can lead to hormonal and physiological changes that may disrupt the timing of labor or affect the baby's growth. So preterm birth and low birth weight are associated with high risk of neonatal complications and long-term health issues for the babies. Next common risk is gestational hypertension and preeclampsia. So stress can contribute to the development of gestational hypertension and preeclampsia. And serious pregnancy these are very serious pregnancy complications which are characterized by high blood pressure. So chronic stress elevates the stress hormones, which further impacts the blood vessel function and increases the risk of hypertension during the pregnancy. So gestational hypertension and preeclampsia then can occur, and it can lead to adverse outcome for both mom and the baby. That might include impaired placental functioning and restricted fetal growth. Also, maternal organ damage can occur. Now, another complication that can occur is increased risk of gestational diabetes. So there have been studies that suggest that maternal stress may increase the risk of developing gestational diabetes and form diabetes that occurs during pregnancy. So stress-related hormonal changes can interfere with insulin regulation and glucose metabolism that will further lead to higher blood sugar levels. And gestational diabetes can result in complications like macrosomia, which is large birth weight, and birth injuries, and also increased risk of type 2 diabetes later in life, both for the mother as well as the baby. Now, let's look into effects of stress on the immune system and the inflammation. So maternal immune response during pregnancy is first thing and very important thing. So during pregnancy, the maternal immune system really undergoes a lot of adaptations to support the baby's development. And these adaptations involves a delicate balance between immune tolerance and protection against all kind of infections. So proper functioning of immune system is very crucial for maintaining a healthy pregnancy. So stress-related changes in immune function, what they do to baby's health and the mother's health and in terms of effect on the immune system. So chronic and severe stress disrupts the balance of the immune system, and that leads to dysregulation of the immune system. So stress triggers the release of stress hormone like cortisol, and which influences the immune cell activity and function. So prolonged stress can result in alteration in the immune responses, which includes, increased inflammation as well as weakened immune system. Now let's look into the implication for maternal and fetal health. So the impact of the stress on the immune system can have further implications for both mother and the baby during pregnancy, and heightened inflammation due to stress can increase complications of preterm births, gestational hypertension, preeclampsia, etc. And additionally, a compromised immune system may make the pregnant mother more susceptible to all kind of infection and further affecting her well-being negatively. I hope this was insightful and really allowed you to explore the different impacts of stress and how crucial it is to manage stress during and after pregnancy, and how crucial it is to work on mother's mental health. I hope this was helpful and made you more aware and informed. And with that, thank you and namaste.